What's up guys, and welcome back to Techplant. Today we have kind of a controversial propagation experiment, and that is soil versus water. Let's check it out. Alright, so like most of my propagation videos, we are going to need a plant to cut up and propagate, and for this one I'm going to use pothos. So the next part is identifying exactly where the nodes are so we can make some cuttings and do some experiments. And to do that, you're just going to follow your vine, and everywhere you see a leaf poke out and where it's sprouted out of the actual vine is going to be your node. It's usually accompanied by aerial roots, but that always isn't the sign, and aerial roots are also not a guaranteed sign of a node. Once you've identified your node, you can cut about 1.5 inches on either side, and this will be an appropriate cutting for propagating. For almost every single propagation experiment I do with pothos, I usually compare it to water, because that's what most people choose to do when they do propagations, so I'm kind of considering that one the base. So I split an equal amount of cuttings on both sides, and we're going to have 1 cup with soil in it and 1 cup with some water in it. I did cut some small holes in the soil cup bottom, just so water can't kind of build up in there and cause overwatering. To get both sets of cuttings to root, I'm putting them each in their individual cup. And then for the soil one, I'm just going to bury the nodes under the soil, not too deep, but just enough so the soil surrounds it completely. And then for the water, I'm just going to fill the water up so the level is above the nodes sitting in the cup. Now we just have to let them sit and kind of check on them periodically. A total of 10 days has passed since we took these cuttings, so let's check them out and see how they're doing. You guys probably aren't going to like this, but I'm not going to dig out the pothos from the soil because I'm worried that every time I severely disturb the cuttings, it's going to cause the roots to be set back quite significantly or get damaged as I pluck them out. So we're just going to skip and look at the water ones because it's much easier to pull out without disturbing. Looking at the ones that we're propagating in water, they're actually all doing pretty good. We do have some small roots forming on almost every single cutting, and some of the vines are kind of starting to form in the node, so we should have some new growth eventually. Looking very closely at them all, it looks like only one has failed to root so far, but I'm not too worried because some just take a little bit longer. But so far, so good. Another 10 days has passed, making it a total of 20 days since we took a cutting, so let's take a look. Looking at the one in soil first, it is already not looking good just from the basic observation. I pulled one out that was pretty much kind of rotted away. However, I do see one that is sort of rooting from the side of the cup. I wish these were a little more clear so I could see inside better, but I think some are starting to root. However, we already have lost one. On the other hand, the water one is still doing very well. We have not lost anything yet, and some of them are actually starting to put out new growth and new vines, so they're doing pretty well. They all have multiple roots, and looking closer, things look very healthy and very good. Here's a good reason too to leave about 1.5 inches on some of your cuttings, because a lot of those older aerial roots that are on just the vine portion have decided to root as well, giving them a little bit more grip and a much better chance at survivability. Alright, it has been 45 days since the initial cuttings. Let's take a look and see where we're at. Starting with our water propagations, they are looking pretty fantastic actually. Once I got them out and took a closer look, they all have multiple roots with rootlets growing out of them. They all have significant vine growth, and they're doing pretty darn good. Something to take note is the water level in this cup. It was a little bit under halfway, which is pretty low, but this is going to be a key concept in just a few short minutes that I'm going to explain when I make the general comparison. Before we get to that though, let's take a look at the ones that were potted up in the soil. I did dump the cuttings out into a bucket just so that way I didn't try and pluck them out and damage the roots, and so let's kind of take a closer look and see where we're at. Looking at them kind of rather quickly from far away, you can see that they're doing quite abysmal. Many of the nodes are kind of losing plant material. It's turned black, skinny, and kind of slowly shriveling up. They do not look very good. Looking closely though, I do see some that actually have some roots forming. They are very kind of thick and short, so maybe that is a good thing. I think when they have to kind of push through soil, they get much stronger and much thicker, so they have the strength to do so. Compared to the differences when you look at the water ones where they're much longer and noodlier, they're definitely weaker, and I think that's because there's no resistance in the water. Alright, so after seeing those results, what is this controversy I spoke about in the beginning? Well, I'm going to claim that water is better than soil for propagating these things, and not so much because the mediums perform differently as far as the medium's sake, but the water method is way more forgiving if you forget about it. I forgot about that soil one. I'm going to have to admit it to you guys. I forgot about it a few times, and it got a little too dry. And then when you water it, you kind of overwater it a little bit. It's kind of hard to manage that process with the soil, where the water is so much more forgiving. If you forget about it for 4, 5, 6, 7 days, there's still plenty of water in there to keep things going. And you even saw in the last 45 days, after the 45 days, my cup was not even half full, yet the propagated rooted cuttings were doing just fine. But when you make those mistakes with the dirt, it's way more detrimental to your propagation. So I would definitely recommend sticking with the water or other better mediums, which I've covered in other propagation videos like sphagnum moss, perlite, or even the clay expanded pellets. Those do work pretty well too, but basically anything that is a lot more forgiving on mistakes. I hope you guys enjoyed this experiment. I'm curious what you guys think about this slightly controversial topic, because really it's not the fault of the soil, it's the fault of the grower, but I think we all make mistakes. So anyways, as always, may your plants grow strong and healthy. I will see you next time.